What's Good Grief, Good God Show?
Okay, so it's a podcast I started. So 2.5 years ago, my oldest son died from a fentanyl overdose. He had struggled with with drugs and alcohol. He had been sober for about a year, and then COVID happened, and he just it just kind of fell off. And he had a couple weeks where he was out, and he took some drugs with fentanyl in them, and he died. So here's a new journey. And I started meeting with other men that I had a couple friends that had lost children, and I realized that because I'm in recovery, I had people to talk to. Like I had a circle of friends where men don't just sit around and get raw and honest with each other that often. That's just something that women do. And we were raised in a culture and you just don't talk about your feelings. And I realized that these men that I knew that weren't in recovery, didn't have anyone. Some of these guys, 4 years, 5 years, their child had been gone and they had never talked about it. I'm like, well, that's ridiculous. We should change that. So I started a meeting at my house with dads that lost kids. And so there's, some people that you would probably like Casey Beathard and Jeffrey Steele and some people that, but there's just a group of guys and we just started dialogue and just talk about the loss and really honest about things. And it's amazing. It's never in my life, except for that hour once a month or that 2 hours, am I in a room full of people where everyone knows exactly how I feel. And that conversation kind of spurred something in me. I wasn't really actually thinking of it. I ran into a guy. We were in Austin playing a charity event. And this guy, Matt Pivito, that produces Jack Ingram's podcast, saw me in catering. He said, hey, I want to talk to you. I've been waiting to meet you for like a year, but he said, I saw something that you wrote on Facebook about your son, and I think you should do it. And he said, I produce podcasts. I think you should do a podcast on grief. I'm like, well, that's a nice idea. I'm definitely not doing that. It doesn't sound like any fun at all. And we exchanged numbers and we talked about it a few times. And I was kind of like, oh, that sounds like it's a lot of work and it sounds like a really emotional thing. I'm just definitely not doing that. And one morning, my wife said, you're doing this. And I knew I was supposed to. And so we have started doing it. And it's actually been a really powerful thing. It's something that's missing because I think people that are really ingrained in church and whatever that may look like, maybe have somewhere to go with this. But this show is kind of for people that maybe are a little bit outside the traditional religious thing. They still believe in God. They believe their child is in heaven or whatever it is. But we talk about it raw, honestly. There's profanity in Jesus and whatever. And it's just a really honest conversation with somebody who's experienced grief. And because you have experienced it. And I feel like everyone, if they live long, if you live long enough, you're going to experience loss and grief. And we just kind of started a conversation. First episodes came out 2 weeks ago, and it's just the response has been more than we thought it would. My friend Lisa over here is one of the producers on it, and it's just been it's really emotional, but it's been really powerful. It's just a conversation about loss and grief, and there's humor, and thus far there's a lot of music people in it, but it's not like we sit around and cry the whole time. It's funny and it's humor, but it's actually things that I don't know, I never heard people talking about, at least in the way that we're talking about it. And we'll see. Tomorrow a new episode will come out, but it's really early, but the response has been a lot more than, I have no social media presence, haven't done anything, and somehow people are finding it and listening and calling and wanting to be on it, and that's really cool, blessing.
Good Grief, goodgodshow.com, or you just search for it. We'll put it up in the notes too, Mike.
Yep.
So you guys can see it over there.